Good morning and welcome everybody who's joined us today. I'm Connor O'Brien, CEO of Beanstox, the app for automated wealth management, help people build their wealth. With me today is Kevin O'Leary, my co-founder and partner in Beanstox, and also Jeff Desjardins, who is CEO and founder of Visual Capitalist. Jeff, great to have you with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I love that book you sent to me. I got to show it to people. It's a fantastic, beautiful book. I'm partway through. Signals all this information on world economic trends, fascinating information. And Kevin, you'll be getting your copy soon. And Kevin, great to have you with us today. Shark Tank in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
So what we're going to do today is first give people a bit of an update on what Visual Capitalist is doing, tell people about Beanstox, and then have Kevin O'Leary tell us his thoughts on 2020, 2021, and how people who have not yet been investing perhaps should start investing. And then learn a bit about this book that Jeff and his firm have put out that is really for people that want to learn more about investment trends. It's a fascinating book. So Jeff, I'll just ask you to give people a quick intro on Visual Capitalist. Some of the guests today are those we've invited, and they don't know you. Love for them to learn a bit about you and your firm.
Yeah, absolutely. The Visual Capitalist is a media site that focuses on visual content. So we post infographics, data visualizations, charts around the economy, what's happening in the markets. And the idea is just to take all of the information that's out there, the massive amounts of information that we're all exposed to each day, and to find ways to simplify it through visuals so that regular people can just understand more about the markets.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're going to get to more details on that soon. So I'm just going to give a quick intro of what Beanstox is. We'll get to more story on it later. But Beanstox is an automated wealth building and wealth management service that we've created. It's available through the app in the App Store, both Google and Apple. And what it does is allows people to open an account very quickly. And we encourage people to start with at least $100, encourage people to put in at least $100 a week. They set their personal financial profile parameters, and then the system gives them a portfolio invested, diversified across ETFs that are selected for dividends, dividend growth, technology sectors, designed to help them build wealth. And the diversification is the key, as is the constant adding of additional money, 10% or more of every paycheck. And the way the math works, if you invest $100 a week from the day you start working until retirement, and if markets do what they've done for the last 40, 60, 80 years, you can expect to end up with something in the area of $1.5 million or more. If you can invest more than $100 a week, of course, you can grow your wealth even more than that. And so Beanstox, it really is the only app that's designed to invest in a way that reflects how Kevin O'Leary invests for himself and for his family. So when people ask us, how is Beanstox different? At the core, that's the difference. How money's invested is the most important thing about investing, as opposed to the color of the app or the name of it or anything else. So that's a quick intro to Beanstox. Love for people to check it out in the App Store. So Kevin, let's give people a little bit of what they're here to hear from you, a little bit of your comments on what happened in the year 2020 that we're just about through. We're in the last month. And what's your outlook for 2021, particularly for economy, for jobs, and for investing?
Well, let's go back to March, because I mean, it really does tie to why I'm here today regarding Beanstox. When I have over 50 companies I'm an investor in, all private, all kinds of different companies that are involved in all kinds of different sectors in almost every state. And we, in March, obviously, when the pandemic broke out and retail was shut down and it was really chaotic, I was very active in helping these companies get the PPP loans. And if you recall, the way those loans worked is you had to disclose your payroll records as at Feb 15th, and they were going to compare them against June 30, and the loan forgiveness was based on your ability to maintain that payroll. And so for the first time ever, and this is really the motivation that got me into Beanstox, I had a very, very clear visibility on my payroll records for pretty well all my companies and their supply chains up and down. So thousands and thousands of people in their 20s and early 30s. And to my, well, I wasn't surprised. I think the word is shock. I mean, I was stunned. Over 90% of them had nothing in the bank except 2 weeks' salary. They had nothing invested. They had no investment account. They had no plan. They were in panic mode because all of a sudden, for the first time in their lives and in recent history, you remember the conversation was about either furloughing half the employees or cutting everybody's salary in half. Those are the two options that were being discussed prior to the PPP loans. So there was a fair amount of concern and angst out there. And that's when we started having these dialogues. And I did more research. There's 100 million people in America with no investment account, no strategy, nothing being planned for when they retire, no cushion, total risk. I mean, that's just crazy. And it's, who knew? And I think it's really the fault of financial literacy at the high school level. But whatever, this is something that's become one of my core focuses in 2021. And the first thing I did was to go out and look at all the different apps that are available to do this with. And there's plenty. Many of them are involved in trading stocks, which is nothing wrong with it. But I don't consider day trading investing. So that's not what I do. And certainly anything I was going to put my name behind and focus on had to reflect the way I invest. And I'm a long-term investor, and I want diversification, and I understand how the markets work now, having been in them for decades. And and there's other apps that round up credit cards and all kinds of different strategies. Nothing wrong with any of them. And I say anything that helps people understand more about their finances is a good thing. But none of them reflected the way I invest and the way I manage my family's wealth. And so that's why I got behind Beanstox, and I had a hand in designing it. But the core to this whole problem, is putting aside something every week, every month, every year. I mean, everybody has to do that. And that's what I encourage my employees to do after seeing the situation they were in. I mean, it was mind-blowing to see that nobody was, not practically all of them had no strategy. And I said, guys, I mean, you've got the average salary in America, depending on the region, is $52,000 to $56,000. Anybody can afford to put $100 a week aside if it's for you and you're protecting your future. And as you said, if the markets do what they do, that's a strategy that will give you over $1 million when you retire, which is what you're going to need when you're in your 60s. So anyways, that's the whole motivation of Beanstox. And I really strongly, advise people that, and here's something else I learned. I mean, this is really, everybody assumes that people know how to buy stocks and trade stocks and build portfolios and have an investment strategy. Very few people know how to do that. And that's why I wanted Beanstox to be incredibly simple. Just transfer $100 into it. It's a robo app that distributes your capital across a wide range of holdings, gives you diversification. That's the only free lunch in investing. That really is why I'm here today, and why I'm focusing a fair amount of my time in 2021 getting this story out there, not only to my employees, but everybody that's in their 20s and 30s. And even if you're older, you got to have an investment strategy. You have to.
Kevin, you made a fantastic explanation for people on an earlier call about saving versus investing. And so many people fail to understand the difference, understand the math. They think, okay, I'll put $100 a week into my bank account. Why don't you talk a little bit about the difference between saving and investing?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it makes sense to have some savings, and I recommend 90 days worth of salary set aside as an emergency fund, but that is not investing. Savings accounts right now give you less than 1% interest. I mean, that is not investing. The markets provide, if you go back 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 years, generally 6 to 8% a year over a long period of time. You're not going to get that in the savings account. So savings and investing are two different things. There's nothing wrong with having some emergency cash around, but that's not going to grow wealth for you. And so, that's part of the financial literacy that I think we have not done a great job in America. Just opening a savings account and putting $100 a week into it is not going to give you much of a cushion, because it's hardly even beating inflation right now. So if you hold on to that for 20, 30, 40 years, it's not going to be much after inflation cuts into it when you turn 65.
Yeah, that's right. The math is pretty easy to do. If you put $100 a week to work, 5,200 a year, you're not earning anything on it. At the end of 40 years, you have barely over $200,000. Compare that to the math we mentioned earlier. If you invest it, not just put it in the bank account, invest it and earn historic returns of the market, you'll end up closer to 1.5 million compared to the 200,000 that was sitting in the bank. And we're just trying to educate people, inform them that growing their wealth is so important. So what we've done this year, between now and year end, and Kevin can talk a bit about this, we decided to make the app free for the first 3 months for people that open an account before the end of December. And Kevin, you were the motivator of this. Talk a little bit about why you decided to do this.
I just want people to try it. I really, really feel strongly that the hardest part of doing this is the discipline of putting aside $100 a week, getting that into your psyche, getting that into your head, getting that into your lifestyle, and making those critical decisions as you buy stuff every day, sneakers, jeans, coffees, all that stuff, that when you're doing that, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that when you're doing that, you're not setting aside anything for yourself long term. Sure, you're buying the hot and whatever it is, but if you look in your closet, and I've done this with many people, look at all the stuff you bought in the last 2 years that you never wear. You killed that money. You could have had that money sitting in an investment that would be growing for you. Instead, it's going to be thrown in the garbage or given away. And so that's the discipline part of it. So what I'm encouraging people to do is go through the idea of downloading the app, putting the first $100 to work, watching it happen. I find that extremely motivating. For the people I talk to and now using Beanstox, they're really focusing on watching what happens, watching the market go up and down, watching the transfer of whatever they're putting in every week. I recommend 10% of your salary. My mother put in 20% of hers and died a very wealthy woman. And she was a working woman. She taught me a lot about investing. I was in a middle-class family, but she was the one that took care of everybody in the family because she had the discipline over a 40-year career to just put aside, in her case, 20% of her paycheck. And they used to pay them back in those days every week. And so she was really, 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 really focused on that. And Beanstox is really her philosophy. It ended up being mine too. You just have to find that discipline. So I thought making it free would be a good way to get people motivated to give it a shot. And once they start using it, I find it becomes very something that they look at and they realize it's theirs. It's their future.
Yeah, and they can set it up so it automates the amount that they put in each week or each month. And the app actually has in it some information for people who are thinking, I can't find $100 a week. It's got information on there's income hobbies, side hustles. And you could be a tutor, teach people a language or math or something else. You can be a dog walker. Get this, people who walk dogs for others get paid 10 or 20 bucks a dog. You can walk 5+ dogs at a time. You can make over $100 an hour just walking some people's dogs. It just takes the initiative. So we'd love to have people download it and try it. There is that information on there. And the way to invest is quite differentiated from other ways you could find investments on other apps. It's more serious than just rounding up roughly 50 cents per credit card purchase. And it's more automated than doing it yourself. And the ETFs that are in the portfolio people will get are ETFs selected to give them a portfolio that's really diversified, wealth building, dividend growth, income building. So encourage people to look at the portfolios as well when they go through the app. What I'd love to do for a few minutes here, Jeff, is talk about the people who actually want to learn more about investing. So maybe they do a bit of Beanstox type investing and have the core of their wealth run the way we're doing it. But maybe they decide, okay, they want to do a little bit on their own, or at least understand what's driving investment markets. Maybe we could turn it over to you for a few minutes here, Jeff. Talk about what's in the book, Signals, some fascinating long-term information of history and of outlook for the future. Maybe you could highlight a few of the pages that you think are your favorites that indicate the mega trends that we should be aware of.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So to me, the book is a culmination of taking a situation where we have so much data and so much information out there. There's some staggering stats around this. There's more data created every 2 years than there is in the entire history of humans prior. So data is expanding at a rapid rate. Every 2 years, it's doubling. And investors trying to get started and trying to understand what's going on in the market, just the basics, it's overwhelming, right? There's too much happening. So for investors, from our perspective, they have to come up with a base, understanding what is going on in the world. It's just as simple as we've divided everything into 27 signals. So trends that are, just going to do this because there's a bit of an echo. So there's 27 different signals, and they're all divided into, they're taking data from specific sources. So like financial markets or demographics in society, technology. They're the key trends that are almost impossible to, you can't really refute them. There are things like average age in the world, median age has been increasing every year since 1970. It's going to increase all the way to the year 2100. So this is a trend that's going to be with us for a very long time. And so investors have to understand the implications of that. Or if you look at something like interest rates have been falling for 700 years, and they're likely to continue to stay low or continue falling. So when you look at these kinds of trends, it creates a bit of a base case for the most average person trying to understand what's going on in the market. And when you have this information, you can see a little bit clearer this picture that is often foggy, where you have all these different trends and things that people are talking about on TV, sometimes conflicting with one another and different conflicting data. And so the book is just trying to distill sort of a foundation so that people can start and look at a little bit clearer, before you start making these decisions in your portfolio.
If we had a bit of an echo there, apologies to the audience for that. This is the book, and I've learned it's available on the Visual Capitalist website. I would encourage people to at least go take a look at the information there and decide if they want to get the book for themselves or get it for a gift for somebody. It's fantastic, fascinating information. Kevin, let's go back to a little bit of interesting entertainment for people just on what's going on with the world of entertainment, the business of entertainment. Shark Tank had a very unique 2020, and it's a great story in a nutshell, and probably some takeaways there that would help teach people who are not yet investing how they can think about the world of investing as well. So first is a unique situation. ABC made the commitment, the discipline essentially, to keep the show going and keep investing in Shark Tank, just as people should keep investing in their own personal wealth. But it's a fascinating story. You guys all went to Las Vegas and generated the 2020-2021 series. Tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the calculus that the network made, and Shark Tank is a partnership between Disney, which owns ABC, MGM, Mark Burnett is the chairman of MGM now, and Sony Pictures, which owns the rights to Shark Tank. So all three of those entities examined the landscape of the fall schedule and realized that there's very little new content being produced during the summer because of the raging pandemic. And they decided to do something that was extraordinary, never been done before. They took over the Sands Hotel, the Venetian in Las Vegas, and 1 million square feet of convention center that's attached to it. And they sealed it off. They made it a hermetically sealed mini city, basically, and put 286 people in it. It was like Hotel California. You can go in, but you can't come out. and everybody was tested every 72 hours for COVID. We only had one false positive in the entire shooting schedule. And we basically shot the show in this remarkable bubble, which is what it was. And, to the credit of the producers and all of the people that have been working on that show for over a decade, and all the new technology, the robotic cameras and the new sound technology and all of this stuff. I mean, it was a cutting edge, almost sci-fi set. And everybody wore masks until the second the camera started rolling, and put them right back on the minute they stopped. And everything was separated. And anyways, it worked. And the show, when it started airing, immediately went to #1 on Friday nights across all networks, because it has no competition. And I like to think it's great content. And of course it is. It's, won 4 Emmys. We're very proud of the show. And unique to this year is some of these deals reflect what has been on the minds of these entrepreneurs during this deep and dark pandemic, and all the new businesses they've invented and come up with, and new solutions to people's problems as they go through a pandemic that has rocked the core of society in every way. And so there's some very interesting deals. You'll see them every Friday night. There's been some amazing products, and I'm just thrilled to be part of it. I really like the fact that it supports entrepreneurship. We've created a tremendous amount of wealth for entrepreneurs. We've sold billions of dollars worth of consumer goods and services, billions. And the show is on in 34 countries around the world. And so clearly we've created something that's iconic. To have a television show last more than 7 years is extremely rare. And yet here we are going into our 13th season. I was talking to producers yesterday about, the new strategy for season 13, where we're going to shoot it, all of those kinds of things. And they're already thinking about it. And, next June is not that far off.
What I find fascinating about the entrepreneurs that get on the show, and what they learn from you and from your partners on the show, is that balance of dream and discipline. The ones that are just dreaming get shot down. The ones that bring enough discipline to their presentation, to their business, they tend to get funded.
That's a good analogy. It's a great analogy for the discipline of investing too. The shock wave. I remember some of those conversations in the first week of April with employees that were totally panicked that the outcome was going to be the furloughing, the basic see you later till this virus is over. And to discover these people with 2 weeks of cash in the bank. I mean, and I get why it happens. I think when you're young, you think you're invincible. You don't care. But that is exactly the wrong place to be in terms of thinking. And lots of people, I do a fair amount of lecturing now, places like Harvard, MIT, Notre Dame, Waterloo, McGill, generally lecturing graduating cohorts of young engineers. I did one this week to the graduating class at Harvard Business School. And you would think that, when you go to and you focus on business, I mean, you're graduating with an MBA, that you would have a plan for your own personal investing. And even there, we had a long conversation about what it takes, what is the discipline? Because when you graduate from college, you got a boatload of debt. Like you're sitting on $60,000 to $80,000 worth of debt, and hopefully it's been a great investment, and you're going to focus on paying it back. And those loans are 5, 6, 7, 8% interest, which is a lot compared to what you can get in a savings account. So we talked a lot about the strategy of paying those down, at the same time getting into the discipline of $100 a week in investing. And those kids are smart enough to know that the power of compounding investments long term, because that's what they studied for 2 years. So I really feel that I'm going to use my social media platform in 2021 to get more people thinking about this. I don't see any downside to having people thinking about their own futures. And certainly the shock wave that they've gone through from this pandemic has got them focused on, there's risk in life, all kinds of risk, and the outcomes are unknown all the time. So you got to focus on protecting yourself. And one thing you got to do is get disciplined about putting something aside. And hopefully Beanstox is one of those tools that people use. But just as important is your head, the discipline of putting aside something every week. And even my kids have learned how important that is. They know how to do it. They get it. Everybody gets it when you start to focus on it. But I think that the pandemic has really got people thinking about the future.
I think you're right. These shocks sometimes have benefits.
Yeah.
Wake people up to what they really need to do for themselves. Nobody else is going to start investing for them unless it's a parent that gives them a kick in the butt, gets them started. I should answer a couple of questions people often ask. So what does it cost? Where is it available? It's available right now only to U.S. residents and U.S. citizens. It costs $0 right now. If you open an account in December, it'll be free for the first 3 months. And thereafter, it's $5 a month with free, zero charge for commission. There's no other charges. So it's essentially like a technology type fee. And everything else is covered for you and done for you as a client, as an investor. So it really is zero commission. It's essentially zero cost for the additional wealth management services, for the additional information that's in there, and for the discipline brought to you by Mr. Wonderful. So those are some of the Q&A points that often come up. Will we bring it to other countries? Let's see. We'll get rolling in the U.S. first. So Jeff, I'd like to just invite you to maybe make a closing comment or two. What do you think of the discipline in investing? How old were you when you started investing? Why did you wait so long, even if you started when you were a kid?
Well, my old man's a financial advisor, so I started investing when I was probably 17. But that said, yeah, I mean, so to Kevin's point about this starting in high school, 18% of students in the US are required to take a personal finance course to graduate. So that means you have 82% of people not taking a personal finance course, not understanding the basics of investing or how compounding works, any of these basic things that we all take for granted. And so that's really the center of it, I think. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's that, and it's also, understand the basics of markets, understand, and if you're not a natural person that absorbs this information, you can use something like our website, which is free, visualcapitalist.com. Every day we have a new infographic or visualization that's easy to look at, easy to understand, and it explains what's going on in the economy, in markets. It helps people understand the big, broader trends, like in our book, things that will be with us for the next 10 years, and they're going to continue to impact everything day to day. So yeah, it's a combination of those two things, education and also having a place to go where you can learn the basics and really understand the world.
Well, I love that comment that you started when you were 17 and then you had some data on
doing
what other
good
people
work
do
there.
and need to do.
I think you're doing good work there. The fact that you can focus on this, and the more people that are doing what you're doing, the more important it is. The state of Florida is one of the states that I went to visit to some high schools there. They have put in place exactly what you said. You have to take that course. And I wish New York and Texas and California would do the same thing because, you're right. 82% people graduating from high school with no financial literacy is a disaster waiting to happen. And we're watching it happen now.
I think once they're given a roadmap from school, they can follow it and feel a lot better about their financial security, their financial stability. So, Jeff, I think what you're doing is fantastic, and we look forward to working with you more in the future. I'll ask our producer to put the Beanstox banner up. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kevin. And we'll be back in front of an audience sometime very soon. Jeff, maybe closing word from you if you like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, everybody. And yeah, it's the combination of that education and also starting early. And those two things combined are a huge weapon, and that's going to put you in the place where you can maybe start comparing your net worth to Mr. Wonderful. But yeah, thanks everybody, and appreciate your time.
And Kevin, closing word from you. What would you tell the audience about investing? When's the time to start?
Find a couple of minutes of every day to focus on your own future. Find that $100 a week, put it to work. It's for you. It's specifically for yourself. It's the most important thing you can do to protect your future. That's what I think.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Jeff. And that'll be it for today. Thank you very much.
Take care.